Good morning, everybody. We've got Grant Kemp back again today to continue the class that we started last week discussing how to analyze a subject to deal. One of the key things that you need to know whenever you're doing marketing and you get a phone call in, and I see this often, is someone calling me up saying, hey, I got this deal. It's underwater. They've got some past due payments. They have no equity. I've got a great sub-2. Well, there's a lot more to it than just those key things. I mean, you need to have some solid numbers to know what your business is, and that's exactly what Grant Kemp is going to be discussing here in the part 2 of the live training on how to analyze a subject to deal. Grant, how was your weekend, man?
Man, my weekend was good. We live a blessed life. I got a super freaking sweet kid and an awesome family. I'm just very thankful for this. So I hope that you guys out there are having equally enjoyable interactions at this point in time, as crazy as it is with us all being kind of stuck inside. But, one of the exciting things that we have is that fortunately we've got technologies that allow us to do this kind of stuff and learn and get better. And I really, really appreciate and respect so much all of you who are taking time out of your busy days and careers and whatever's to tune in and better yourself with stuff like this. And as you guys know, I feel like sub-2 is sub-2 wraps particularly are just the place to make the most money with the least amount of risk. However, the whole base of this is we get sent deals all the time. I see this consistently in the creative financing world where, people think, hey, if this is a bad cash deal, that means it's a good owner financing deal. And at the end of the day, that's just not how it works. It's not that way. And so this is a 2-part series. We spent last week on our 3 major rules of thumb to start this out. I'm gonna throw a quiz, which I don't really fully expect you to answer, but we're gonna see. Daniel, can you remember? Can you remember? Don't worry. Last time it was Disney. This time we're going to Genesis. Can you remember the rules of thumb? Do you remember what we went over last time?
So I remember one of them, and was that the 80%? The 80% cash rule? 82% cash rule.
So yeah, exactly. You're kind of mixing the two together. That's perfect. So there's the 82% rule, which is the second category, right? The first category does have to do with cash, and it is multiplying your cash. How much cash do you have? What is your cash basis in this deal? How much are you having to cash it up for? How much are you having to give the seller to walk away? How much is going into rehab? When you close on this property, how much money is leaving a bank account and going into this deal? Multiply that number by 2, and you want to have at least that much equity in the deal when you compare the loan you've now taken over on to the value of the property, ARV. Okay, so I call that one my 2 times cash rule. So can you repeat that for me, maybe in different words to help as I kind of blow through those things, or would you be able to rephrase that, and then we'll go into the 82% rule of why that's next in line?
So let me make sure I got this right. The 2 times cash rule means that if I've put $5,000 into this deal to get it purchased, that I must retain at least $10,000 in equity on the property for this to make sense to me. Did I say that right?
Yep. Yeah, okay. You want $10,000 of equity the day after you close on the acquisition of that property. You would, in that example, want $10,000. Oh my goodness! You would want $10,000 of room between the loan balance and the ARV. That's what we're talking about in the equity there, okay? Not total basis, but we go over that. Again, if you guys have any questions about these, we're just blowing through just as a reset, right? If you have any questions about these, once you get done today, you don't have to have built from last time. If this is the first episode you're watching, don't worry about it. Finish watching with us. And then go back and watch the episode from last week to get a recap of those. So yeah, you're absolutely right. That is my 2 times cash rule. Now, sometimes we're going to run into deals where the arrears are huge, or for whatever reason our cash outlay might be pretty significant. So in those cases where maybe our ARV on this property is $100,000 and we're having to put 40 grand out on the table, well, it's just not reasonable to expect that we're going to get an $80,000 equity position on this deal and taking it over sub-2. It's just, you can do it, we've done it, but it's not common. That is an edge case. So that 2 times cash rule breaks down the more cash you have to put out on it. As a finishing kind of book cap on something that we talked about during that 2 times cash rule, is the 2 times cash rule really shines in the super low equity deal. That's where the 2 times cash rule really comes into play. Is because you'll hear me talk about sub-2 deals and say, yeah, you can buy all the way up at 100, 105% of the value of a property and still make tons of money on it. That doesn't mean that every time you're going to buy a property at full price, you're going to make money on it. But what it does mean is that you can take that deal down, and you have a very good potential of that turning positive for you if you're buying at 100% and you don't have to put any cash on the line, because now you're not risking anything. So that's where the 2 times cash rule really shines. It's like, dude, this house is worth 100 and I'm going to take over on a $95,000 loan. Is that something that I can do and make money with? And the answer may be yes, if your cash outlay is less than $2,500 in that case. Do you think that book caps us pretty well there, Daniel?
Yes, so I want to ask you real quick on that, because I got somewhat confused at the end. I'm not the smartest person in the room. You said you got a deal worth $100,000 and you're taking it down at 95, so you don't want to be out of pocket more than $2,500. Was that on the 2 times cash rule?
That's for the 2 times cash rule. Exactly.
Okay,
so
why?
Go ahead.
Why the 2,500? Okay, because you're not wanting to have. So you're wanting to have at least 2 times your cash and equity on the deal, right? So if there's a $100,000 property and you're into it for $2,500, well then you've got at least 2 times your equity in the deal. That seem right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
All right. Thank you, man.
Right.
You appreciate
so it's
that.
like if we're taking over on a 95 loan, and we got to put 2,500 in. Well, I double 2,500. That's $5,000. That's $5,000. So my equity I want on that deal is going to be a minimum of $5,000. And if the house is worth 100, we're taking over on 95. Boom, we meet it, right? Our risk is low enough. The idea behind the 2 times cash rule is to say, if you have to, you should be able to make your money back, right? The whole thing is risk mitigation. In a quote unquote worst case scenario, we should at least be able to get whatever cash we put out back into our pocket. And on like super low equity deals like that, sometimes you're going to run into a situation where you're buying it for 98. Okay, if you meet your 2 times cash rule, you put $1,000 into this thing. Even if you can't get it back out, you're out $1,000, and you have the possibility of making a ton of money, right? And so that'll be a business decision that you come down to making. But this is why I developed the 2 times cash rule, is to help you determine, hey, does this low equity deal really make sense to me? Because here's the reverse of that. Here's what would not make sense: is you're taking over on a loan of 50, and you're putting up $45,000 to do so. Maybe it's a $30,000 back payment and $15,000 worth of repairs. Okay, so we're in at 95 cents on the dollar again, but this time the deal doesn't work, because this time we don't have 2 times the cash that we put in. You see the difference that I'm drawing there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So that's why, and I hope there's some light bulbs. If you've got some light bulb moments in this, please, we are watching the comments, and Ike is pulling those and letting us see them. So if you're seeing some light bulb moments, hit me with some light bulbs, right? See, like, oh, I never thought about this, or put a timestamp of stuff that's particularly impactful for you throughout today's lesson. But that's really what it boils down to, right? You're looking at a deal at 95 cents on the dollar either way. At one, we're buying a house for taking over on a $95,000 loan. We might have to put in, or let me put it this way: we're taking a loan over at 93. Okay, we put in $2,000. Now our total basis on the property, our debt that we've taken over on, and the cash that we put into the deal added together, come up to $95,000. If it's a $100,000 property, we're good to go. And why is that? Why is that? And that's, I know we're kind of, but I want to make sure that people get this through, because this is very important to the next piece, and the next piece, and the next piece is where we build. So why is that? If we've got a $93,000 loan, we're putting $2,000 into it, it's worth 100. Daniel, why am I saying that that's probably an okay deal for you to do sub-2?
I was ADD'd over here looking at the comments. Can you
No
repeat
worries.
that for me one time? I'm a
Daniel does such a
bad
good job
co-host.
looking at the
Everybody out there, I apologize.
No problem. So, and it was a lob anyway. So the answer is because we hit our 2 times cash. If we're going to take over on a loan of 93, we're putting $2,000 into it, and the house is worth 100. Our total basis, and we defined these terms last week, but our total basis, cash and debt, add up to 95% of the ARV, the after repair value. Okay, so I'm in the deal for 95 cents, and I'm saying do it. You're good.
Good stuff.
But what if you are taking over on a $50,000 loan and you got to put $45,000 worth of cash into it? Well, now you're still at 95%, but now I'm saying don't do the deal. Why am I saying don't do the deal, Daniel?
Because the amount of money that you've had to put into the deal is quite significant, and you're looking to protect the money that you have invested into any deal. And your rule when you're coming out of pocket with something like that is to not be into the deal for more than 82 cents on the dollar, because at that price point, if you turn around and sold it retail, any of your acquisition, holding, and dispo costs are going to get ate up in that first 18%, leaving the remaining 82%, which is technically your cash in the deal, still available to extract on the backside of a deal.
Yeah, so I think I followed you on that. So let me just rephrase what I think I heard. But either way, it's going to move into the right. It's moving into step 2, right? So what I'm going to rephrase that as is like you pointed out, and as Joshua Logan points out on YouTube, it's all about being safe with how much cash you can put in. Was his light bulb moment? Absolutely, right? Because if I'm at a $93,000 loan and I put $2,000 in, there's a good chance that even if things kind of go south, maybe there's another investor that would be happy to take over on that and give me my $2,000, right? Maybe there's a situation where you can call Grant up and be like, look, I took this deal down for whatever reason it is. I don't like it. I want $2,000 to get out of this. There's a good chance that you're going to be able to get your cash back in your pocket, okay? The most important rule of investing is to not lose money. The second most important rule is to make money, right? But primarily, we don't lose money. If you lose money, not only did you not make it, but you also went into your bank account. That's why that one is more important. So our worst case scenario, hopefully we get our money back. If you put 45 in, took over on a 50 loan, and you're still at 95, it's still the same basis. But now if you sell, there's no way you're getting your 45 back, right? It's just not going to happen. You're losing money now. So that's why we have the 82% rule, which says, hey, if you're putting a significant amount of cash up, okay, what about that? What about I do have to put 45 in? Because there's $30,000 in arrear payments and I've got to do a $15,000 repair on this to make it worth 100. That happens. In that case, obviously we're not hitting 2 times cash anymore if the ARV is 100, but if you can get in at under 82% total basis, now I'm cool with it. Okay, you've put a significant amount of cash up. If you need to be in at 82 and 82%, and you know you're going to have to put $45,000 worth of cash into this deal, then the most the loan can be for would be $37,000. Because $37,000 loan plus $45,000 cash equals $82,000 total basis. And essentially what's happened there is you have subsidized your purchase of this property with a $37,000 loan that is probably fully amortized out over a 30-year amortization, which you're not going to get from a bank on an investment loan, which is probably in the 3-4% range on interest rates, which you're not going to get from a bank loan or a private loan, right? So you're subsidizing this purchase for significantly better terms, right? It's also non-recourse. You're getting significantly better return or terms on this sub-2 deal, and it's subsidizing your purchase to get you in, which is why I'm okay with pushing to an 82% value instead of our traditional knowledge that says, hey, let's buy at 70 cents on the dollar, right?
Can I jump in and kind of recap on some of that? So you're talking about the investment loans, and you're going out there, you're going to take this property over subject to with an existing loan on the deal, and you're listing out some of the reasons why this is so good for you. And one of them you said was, you know what, if I go out and I try and get an investment loan, it's not going to amortize at 30 years like this. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so good question. What I mean by that is if you go to a bank and you say, hey, bank, I'm a real estate investor, and I would like to use your money to invest in real estate. Right now, the terms that you're going to be looking at are going to look something like this. They are going to give you a 20-year amortization with a 5 or 10-year term with the assumption that it will be renewed and extended. And what I mean by that, amortization is the word used for if you were to pay me this loan over X amount of months, what would the loan payment be? Okay? So that is when we look at our calculator and we're putting in the calculator fields. And who in here has watched on the Propelio Academy? Who in here has watched my episode on the 10b2 calculator? I'd like to see the comments dropped in here and see, because usually those comments, or I'm sorry, those that video is one of the best received videos, because you start seeing how much money you stand to actually make here. But if we look at our calculator, what we are looking at here is we've got to put terms in, right? And so the N is how many number of payments are we going to calculate for. If I were to pay for 30 years, there's 12 months in a year, so that means we've got 360 payments. So that's what I'm going to calculate. If we're paying at, whatever, a bank loan is probably going to be in the mid sixes for you. So let's say 6.5% on a, whatever, $90,000 loan. That would mean that your payment would be $568 if you were going to be paying for 30 years. But what they're going to do is they're going to say, we're not going to let you amortize as though you were paying over 30 years. We're going to amortize as though you were paying over 20 years. So we're going to put 240 here. 20 times 12 is 240. We're going to solve for the payment there. Now your payment to me, Mr. Investor, is going to be $671 a month. But guess what? We're not even going to let you pay for the full 20 years. What's going to happen is you're going to pay me $671 a month as though it was over 20 years. But actually in 5 years, whatever is left, you're going to owe that to me. It's a balloon payment. That's your term, right? So at that point in time, when 5 years rolls around, you cross your fingers and you hope that they want to renew and extend, which most of the time they will, but a lot of times they won't. And they're just going to say, okay, well, you still owe us $70,000, so I need you to pay me 70 grand. That's a balloon. So amortization and term are two different things. If we were to pay over 20 years, this is what would the payment be. But the term is actually for 5 years. So whatever's left in 5 years, you're going to owe it. That's how bank loans are going to work for investments. You're typically on a 20-year AM at most, a lot of times, a great portion of it, it's going to be on a 15-year AM, which makes your payment even higher. And your interest rate's going to be in the low mid sixes, and you're going to have a 5 or 10-year term on it. When you're buying a sub2 property, you're getting interest. Oh, and by the way, you're going to have to sign personally on that thing. So if you miss payments, they can come after your personal assets, your house that you live in, your car that you drive. You are personally guaranteeing that loan, saying, if my LLC doesn't pay this, I personally will dip into my personal assets to make up for this loan.
All
it's
right.
kind of like you're co-signing for your LLC.
So
when you're buying with sub2, that doesn't exist. It's only the LLC that's liable. When you're buying with sub2, your interest rates are going to be in the probably 3s or 4s, not 6.5. When you're buying sub2, most consumers are getting fully amortized 30-year loans, meaning that the payment is calculated as though it was going to pay over 30 years, and they're just getting to pay for 30 years. There's no balloon in that. So buying sub2, you're getting non-ballooned, non-personal guaranteed, low interest rate financing. And in this situation that we're looking at here, you are subsidizing your purchase with great terms that you would not be able to get elsewhere.
So what I'm going to hear and what I'm going to go ahead and recap real quick, because that got pretty deep, is one of the primary benefits of buying subject to, and one of the ways of analyzing a deal on a subject to deal, we're traditionally told to buy at 70 cents on the dollar. But when you're going in heavy on cash on a deal, you're okay with going up to 82% on the dollar, because the loan terms that you're getting are so beneficial that it adds value to the deal that you otherwise would not get. Things like you're getting a fully amortized loan, meaning you got 30 full years to pay it off, versus an investor loan where you might have a 5-year term where you've got to get it figured out. And some of the other benefits is you've got low interest rates, you've got a good payment, and it's non-recourse, meaning that if things go south, it's not your personal name on the line for this deal, which is no one's goal is to analyze a deal with, okay, it's going south, but there's always the chance of a deal going south, and in this fashion, you're protected. So these are some of the primary benefits of why you're able to go up to 82 cents on the dollar versus 70 cents on the dollar, and why you're willing to go in a little heavier on these types of deals. Is that correct?
Yep.
All right.
That is absolutely correct. So I love that you went through all of that. So now we've hit first couple, right? We got the 2 times cash. If you've got too much cash into it, then look and see if you hit the 82% rule. If you do, again, you're probably still good. Again, these are rules of thumb are made to be broken. If you've got a reason as to why you want to do something, that's cool. What we then started looking at, those are kind of the two most major pieces. Then we start looking at some kind of secondary and tertiary things that you might want to look at, like your minimum cash flow. I recommend that you know going into every deal, what is the minimum cash flow that you are willing to accept on any one deal? Right now, we're at about 150 on our minimum cash flows, but again, we've got deals that have cash flows of less than 150. One reason might be, hey, I'm getting $100 cash flow, but I got a $50,000 equity position in this thing, right? It's great equity. It's fine to take less cash flow because I've got some reason that means that works for me, right? So I recommend you have a minimum cash flow. We talked about that last week. And then what we were getting into was the 15% rule. Now, before I get into that, I want to give you one more kind of secondary, kind of like the minimum cash flow. I also, as a rule of thumb, want you to make your money back in 18 months. If you have to put cash out of your pocket, your personal bank account, I want that cash, I want you to break even within 18 months. The cash flow of that deal should pay your company back. It should pay your bank account back and break even within about 18 months. Does that make sense?
Most definitely, and I'm glad that you brought that up because that's important. I mean, that really lays into your cash-on-cash returns, which is one of those wonderful percentages that we as investors should be paying attention to. And with those cash-on-cash returns laid out, I mean, 18-month repay is a pretty high cash-on-cash return. So overall, that sounds like a fairly solid investment. If that same outlaid cash took you 22 years to return, the cash-on-cash is absolutely horrendous and probably not anywhere near the type of deal you'd want to be doing, especially on a subject to.
Yep, absolutely. So Mark, Wolf, Antonio Hernandez, Angel Shannon, y'all all saw the 10B2 video. I'm sure I'd like to hear what you guys thought of it because, like I said, that usually gets people really pumped up. So, but again, we've got the 2 times cash, the 82%, minimum cash flow, and repayment term of about 18 months. But let the cash flow repay you. Now, here's the thing. The reason why I say repay your bank account is, let's use that example earlier. We got a $50,000 sub2 deal that we're taking over on, and then we're putting $45,000 worth of cash up. Well, you might get that $45,000 in that case from a private investor. That would be my recommendation. So you go get that money from a private money lender, somebody who has an IRA with a little bit of cash in there, and they would rather have their money backed by real estate than the stock market. A lot of people have rollover 401ks from a job they quit earlier. You can convert that into a self-directed IRA and lend that money out and have it backed by real estate. So if you're in that situation, please reach out to me. If you're an investor looking to do this on other deals, look for people that fit in that category. There's tons of people who are really good at their job and have money in an IRA that they would like to have placed and backed by real estate. Finding the deal is the hard part. You find deals, so become a service to the people that are around you that have money in an IRA that need that to have a return. So if there's a $45,000 cash outlay, I would not recommend you just spending your $45,000. What I would recommend is you go find somebody who's really good at their job and works a 9 to 5, and they've got $45,000 in an IRA or in an account somewhere that they would like have and invest in real estate, and work a deal. Let them invest their capital, give them a return on it, and use that money to get in. But maybe they've got 40. And so you're going to put 5,000 in. They're going to put 40 in, and then you're going to take over on that $50,000 loan. Well, your bank account has now been dissolved by $5,000. And I want your cash flow to catch up that $5,000 within 18 months or so. Again, these are rules of thumb. If you've got a reason to break it, go for it. But I'm just kind of giving you some guidance. Does that make sense, Daniel, or did I go through too many numbers right there at the same time?
No, I think that worked out well. I did have 2 questions that are similar. One from Dozy, and my apologies if I said your name wrong, and Axel. Both of them asking, hey, can you kind of outline what it looks like whenever you've got a large repair like that, and you are working with a lender to cover those rehab costs? Do you put them in second position lien, third position lien? Do you give some sort of partnership with them? What do those typically look like for you? If you can kind of outline just some of the basics of what that looks like when you're doing that type of deal, and how you work those into your numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good question. So yeah, you cannot give, because Daniel, what defines lien position? What makes a lien position?
The time it was stamped and filed in the county records.
Yep, that's the only thing that defines lien position. So when you're buying a house subject to, there is no way to be in a lien position higher than that sub-2 property. That sub-2 property is going to be in first lien. That sub-2 loan, is going to be in first lien position. There's nothing you can do about that. So when you are taking out private capital to cover arrears and rehabs, that private capital is going to be in a subordinate lien position, in a second lien position. And some lenders are not okay with that. Others are. You've got to look for people who are, right? Who you are is going to matter a ton when it comes to private capital, right? Like I get a lot of private capital just because I have a good reputation of I'm going to make sure that people get paid back and taken care of. So there are people that will lend me second lien money who would not lend somebody else second lien money just because of who I am, right? So you've got to make sure that you're doing business in such a way that that person's going to feel comfortable with you, that they're investing in you just as much as they are the property. That's critical here. The other critical point, and I've not actually really talked about this with my lenders, it's never really been a position of concern or something that we've had in conversation, but I know personally, even if, because why is there a danger in taking second lien position, Daniel? Why would somebody not want to take second lien position?
Some of the risks of taking a second lien position is in the event that the first lien position does not get paid or there is some form of default on the first position. If they move forward with a foreclosure, that second position runs the risk of having their lien wiped out during a foreclosure because a foreclosure wipes out all subordinate liens. So if that first position comes through for whatever reason and they enforce and move forward with the foreclosure, the second position runs the risk of losing everything in that deal if they don't take actions to prevent that.
Yep, absolutely. So just so that we're making sure that everybody's on the same page here, can you just expound on what do you mean when you say wiped out? What does that mean for the second lien lender? What does wiped out mean?
So wiped out, like, all right, let's just say, for example, here, we're like the deal you were talking about earlier. You got a $50,000 loan that you're taking over subject to. You bring in a private lender for $40,000 to cover some of the repairs, and you personally came in with $5,000 of your own capital. So you're all into this deal for $95,000. For whatever reason, let's just say that the first position lender, let's just say they call the loan due from the due on sale clause. Let's just say that that's what happens. And they are somehow able to move forward with a foreclosure. If that first position lien does foreclose on the property, any subordinate liens get canceled and cleared off of the record. So that second position lender has a $40,000 lien on that property. That's a second position lien. Since the first position foreclosed, that second position loses their rights and claims to that property during the foreclosure process, essentially taking their $40,000 investment and removing the collateral, leaving them going after essentially me as the investor for their money, but they lost their collateral. That's never a good position to be in.
Correct. So thank you for outlining that. That is why lenders might have an issue with being in a subordinate lien position. The thing that, like I've mentioned this before on, I don't talk about this with my lenders just because it doesn't really come up, but I know that if something were to happen and that lien were to get wiped out, I don't care what lien position my lender was in, I'm going to make sure that they get paid, right? And I want to encourage you guys to hold that same attitude. Never, ever, ever take out a second lien loan to cover repairs and arrearages, and then if it gets wiped out for whatever crazy reason, which it should, I've never had that happen, but say that it does, don't just go to your lender and be like, well, sorry, your lien got wiped out. It really sucks that they called the due on sale and I couldn't cover it, so better luck next time, right? You don't have a legal obligation to pay that person. But you sure as heck have a moral obligation to pay that person. You looked at them in the eyes and said they were going to get taken care of. So in my mind, I don't have any issue asking people for second lien money because I know even if they get wiped out, I'm going to make sure that they get their money back. I'm going to, even if it takes time out and takes me out of other properties, that's what it's going to happen. And I want you guys to take that into a consideration too, because you're not going to get private money if you don't hold that private money as more important than you eating dinner, because you just need to have that idea behind it. So did that Did that answer the questions? I know we were talking about lien position and kind of taking that capital out. I think that we answered that. But Daniel, did I go through that thoroughly enough for what was being asked?
I feel like you answered it, and I think that people are probably trying to find, just a magic universal answer as to how that works. But I mean, what I think that needs to be expressed is the way you work with the private lender is however that private lender agrees to work with you. I mean, you might be looking for, okay, well, you do a 20-year term, a 5-year term, a 30-year term.
Right.
What kind of interest rates are you looking for? That's all up to negotiations.
Yeah.
And
I think that.
Sorry,
go ahead.
Go for it.
No, I was just going to say, I think that part of the importance there, and I'm glad that you brought up that aspect of it, is maybe I think that could take a whole other episode. Let's talk about private capital on sub-2s. Because, part of that, when I do second lien money, my analysis switches over to how quickly can I get this lender paid off, okay? From when I'm doing first lien money, I'm doing 30-year AMs, and sometimes I'll do a term like a 5 or a 10-year call for my private money if they want to have the opportunity, like I said, to either renew and extend. But if it's first lien money, we're going to go over a long period of time. If somebody is entrusting me with a second lien loan, when I analyze the deal, I'm looking at what is the fastest possible avenue to paying this person off. I might apply some of my disposition down payment to them. I might apply all of my cash flow to them. What I really want to do, my goal is to get them paid off within 5 years. So maybe that helps answer as well on that.
Okay. That's a great way to look at it.
Good questions. And please keep them coming. Again, we want to get these things going. So when we are analyzing this deal, and I saw something come in from Santiago of saying, hey, can we maybe look at a real life deal applying your rules of thumb? A visual will be very helpful. Yeah, actually, I will totally be willing to do that. Let's get through this other piece right here, which is just one more piece of the puzzle. And then Santiago, let me know. So Santiago actually is a JV partner of ours. We actually just closed on a deal with him on Monday. And Santiago, would you be fine with me using that as an example? We closed on that one a couple of days ago. We may as well look at that one. So comment for me and let me know if that'd be okay for you. Obviously, we keep names and all that redacted because we're going public with this, and I'll bring up the PDFs. But if you're cool with me using that example, we'll go off of that. And if there's anybody else watching that wants to JV on deals, like Santiago has, go to creativecashflow.com/JV with me, submit your deal there. My team will help negotiate it. My team will, on this deal right here, I put up out of my own pocket like $16,000 or $17,000 to get this deal done for Santiago. So, and we've done other deals together, right? So if you need help on a deal, check us out there and we'll help you close through that. So just let me know, Santiago, if you're cool with us using that one.
Hold on just a second.
Because the next...
Congratulations, Santiago. There's nothing like getting a deal done. And I want to take a time to just say thank you and congratulations on your side, man, for getting a deal done. So everybody give him a shout out. Santiago, let's raise your hand and say yay for you, because getting that deal done is important. And I'm glad that you were able to get it done. You were able to find a deal. You were able to recognize that it had potential, and you were able to pull together the resources to get it done. Congratulations to you, sir.
I love that you stopped to do that. Yeah, because Santiago has found... I believe he was a wholesaler, and he has found. We've got tons of deals that he's coming through us now because it's just easier to have my sales team make the calls and make the things happen and all that kind of stuff, and it's been really good for both of us. So yeah, nothing makes me happier than getting people into deals like this. So yeah, absolutely, congratulations, man. All right, so the last piece of the puzzle, when we are looking at a quick and accurate analysis of a subject to deal, is going to be what I call the 15% rule, okay? Now this one doesn't apply to everything. And this is kind of a tertiary, right? We've really hit the core of quick and accurate analysis, the 2 times cash, the 82%, the minimum cash flow, and the repayment term. But another thing that I see happen constantly is I see people get wrong the assumption of, hey, there's back payments on this, so what is actually owed? Now, I see some familiar names as we're watching here, which is good. I love people coming back and watching more with us. It's amazing. I also see some new names. So here's my question. Here's what I'm going to ask you guys is, if you are looking at arrears on a loan, okay, let's say that the loan balance on the mortgage statement says $90,000 is owed. Let's say it is a $2,000 payment every month, PITI, and they are 5 months behind. Okay? So your mortgage statement says this person owes $90,000. It also says the next payment due is $10,000 because we're 5 months behind on a $2,000 payment, and I'm ignoring late fees right now and legal fees and that kind of thing. Does the person owe $100,000? Option A. Does the person, so like if you catch up that $10,000, the day after closing, they're going to have a $90,000 balance because they really owe $100,000. $10,000 of that is payments that are already due, and the property balance was $90,000. Or is the property balance $90,000? You pay $10,000 for the arrears, and the day after closing, you're going to have an $80,000 balance because the mortgage statement said $90,000. They're behind by $10,000, and so now we catch that up, and the next day we're going to have an $80,000 balance. Or something else, something in between. I want to see y'all's opinions, okay? Let's get some comments in here. Is it option A, they owe $90,000 on the mortgage statement. It says they owe $10,000 in back payments. So when you close on that deal sub2, the day after, you put the $10,000 up. Now they actually owe $90,000. That would be option one because they owe $90,000, and they also owe $10,000 in payments, which is really $100,000. So you put the 10 in. Day after closing, now they actually owe $90,000, and you're going to move forward. That's option A. Option B is they owe $90,000. You put the $10,000 up. The next day, they are going to owe $80,000 because they have a $90,000 balance. They have $10,000 in payments that are due. You put that up, and so now, day after closing, they owe $80,000. That's option B. Option C is something else. They owe something between the two, some kind of combination of it. I'd like to see y'all's opinions pop in. So Matt Smith says $90,000. The day after, they're going to close on $90,000. So that would imply that we are looking at, really, they owe $100,000. $10,000 of that was payments. Dizzy says option 2, which is they owe $90,000, and we're going to put $10,000 up because that's the payments that were due. And day after closing, they're going to owe $80,000. Good.
I think I got an answer.
Joshua Logan also says option A. I'm very glad that we're getting these answers because, Daniel, what's your answer?
So I'm gonna take an educated guess here and hope that I sound smart here. But that $10,000 in past due payments is a culmination of several things. One of them are past due payments. Past due payments include principal, interest, possibly taxes and insurance. Also, it covers legal fees and other fees associated with this loan. So what we're going to do is we're likely going to come into a scenario C where there's going to be portions of that $10,000 that do get applied to your principal pay down, but the remainder of it goes to fees and interest that we'd be seeing. So if there's a $90,000 principal balance on this loan with $10,000 in past due payments, let's say about $1,800 of that goes towards principal, which means your remaining balance is $88,200, and the rest of that is going to get applied to fees and interest that was due on the loan. Is that a yay me answer, or did I just look stupid?
That's a yay me answer.
Woo! Did that make sense?
It does. That is absolutely correct. This is so this is how this works, okay? I'm going to illustrate this for you. This is why we're going through this, because I look in the comments, we got a couple of votes for A and B. People are voting both A and B. Nobody voted C. C is the right answer for that reason exactly. So let's walk through this. Let's walk through why that is the way that it is. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. This is. So if you look at a payment, and again, for the time being, I'm going to completely ignore late payments, okay? We're just going to go over late fees and attorney's fees. We're just going to go over some principles right now. If you look at a payment is made up of P, I, T, I, okay? That is principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So let's say, even though it's never going to really be this way, but just for the sake of our example, let's say that in this, we've got $500 is going to go towards principal. $500 is going to go towards interest, $500 towards taxes, $500 towards insurance. That means that our total payment would be $2,000. If they are 5 months behind, that means on all of these columns, they've got 5 months of that built up, which means that they are in arrears for $10,000. But if you look at each column, this one has 2,500? Yeah, 2,500 built into it. This one has 2,500 built into it. This one has 2,500, and this one has 2,500. So I ask, when you make these arrears payments, it's not I don't ask you, I'm just gonna make statements. I ask you, and then I'm gonna make statements. It's not just some like magical, mystical reason that this money is owed. The money is owed because they missed 5 payments of principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Those payments, when you make them as I'm gonna catch you up at closing, that arrears payment is simply making those last 5 payments for them. As though you went back in time 5 months ago and said, here's $2,000. And 4 months ago, here's $2,000. And 3 months, 2,000, 2 months, 2,000, 1 month, 2,000. Now we're all caught up. So if that's the case, if I might ask a pandering question here, which of these columns, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, are going to affect the principal balance of your loan?
Is that a trick question?
You would think so, because half the time I ask that question, people get it wrong.
So if we're looking at this, we've got principal,
column,
interest, taxes, and insurance. And we're trying to decide how much of the principal pay down is going to occur when we pay back that $10,000. Well, I know now that $2,500 of it is going to go to insurance. So that's not going to pay down my principal. I know that $2,500 of it goes to taxes. That's not going to pay back my principal because we know that that's going straight to Uncle Sam. Now we've also got interest. That's the bank's profit. Well, the bank's not going to give me their profit, so $2,500 of that's not going to go towards my pay down. But this column that says principal, that principal should get applied to paying down the loan that I'm taking over. So I can deduct my current loan balance by $2,500, and that'll tell me what my new principal balance is at the end of the reinstatement. That seem fair?
Ding, 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 ding. Absolutely. When you are making payments, you are, again, the arrears payments aren't just some magical number. It is the payments that were due and did not get paid, which would have applied to principal, interest, tax, and insurance. So now when you give them a lump sum of that, it's just whatever's in the principal bucket that's going to affect the principal balance, right? Do I get some aha moments? Can I get an amen? Right? Is this a moment of realization for you guys? And I know it is for at least a few of you who voted because the vote was wrong, which is why I'm talking about this, because this is such a common misconception. Like almost everyone who ever brings me a sub2 deal to analyze gets it wrong. So it's really important for us to know this, because remember how I've been preaching so consistently about the 2 times cash rule, and I keep reminding, I say it's 2 times cash day after closing, right? I've kept saying that, and I'm like, well, hang on, I'll explain why I'm saying that later. Well, here's later. Later is now, man. 2 times cash the day after closing is important for a very significant reason. All right? So I'm ignoring late fees for the moment. I'm ignoring attorney's fees. I'm trying to simplify this as much as possible. But in my example, we're going to roll through very quickly. If Santiago gives us permission to go over that deal, which I would love, again, Santiago, if you're fine with us using, numbers and stuff, but I think it's a deal to be proud of. You got a sweet gig. You got a sweet deal that we were able to help close. I'll show you how much. The reason I bring that up is I've got the reinstatement up. If we're going to look over that, I can show you guys what a real reinstatement looks like, what a real numbers and analysis looks like, that kind of thing. So we're only looking at PITI, assuming late fees and attorney's fees are not part of it. Now, the day after closing thing is very significant because we want 2 times cash, right? So when I'm saying it, remember with 2 times cash is whatever cash outlay you put, multiply that by 2, and I want that to be your minimum equity position between what you owe on this sub-2 loan the day after closing and what the value of the property is, ARV. So let's look at two different scenarios. We're going to look at one situation where we have somebody who had a 30-year loan. Okay. They are at a 4% interest rate, and it was originally a, whatever, $100,000 loan. So their payment that you're taking over on sub-2 is $477.42. All right. So I'm going to look at this amortization schedule. The amortization schedule is what tells you what part of each payment goes to what. So like how much of this payment went towards interest, how much of this payment went towards the principal, that kind of stuff. You see this? Yeah, we'll zoom into this. Okay.
And for those of you that are watching this and don't know what Grant's using, that's called a 10B2 calculator. 10, the number 10, 10, the letter B, and then II. It's a 10B2 calculator. It's available to you on the Apple Store, on the Google Store, whatever that is, the Play Store. Go out there and download it. It's like $4 or $5, but it's an absolute necessity to understanding. Yeah, that icon right there that he's showing you, that's an absolute necessity to analyzing these deals. If you do not know how to use this, feel free to go out there to propelio.com/academy. Go over there to creativecashflow.com and watch a video. Grant has graciously done a full video teaching you how to do this. So check out that 10B2 calculator video, because you're not going to be able to invest long term in subject to without understanding that 10B2 calculator. You're not going to be able to invest in mobile homes without knowing that calculator. You're not going to be able to invest in notes without knowing that calculator. And in the end of the day, if you're investing in real estate, you really should understand this calculator, because this calculator is what is going to show you how to truly make long-term money in real estate, because that calculator is what's going to teach you how to make money with your money long-term, and it is an absolute amazing tool to know and have in your back pocket.
Yeah, absolutely right. This is your money maker. Shake your money maker. So y'all have to deal with me singing because I'm the one with the microphone. So like, what was that Adam Sandler movie, Wedding Singer? So let's look at this. Let's look at this guy here. All right, so I'm going to go into my weatherman mode so we can point things out for you. When we are in an amortization schedule, I'm going to show you two different situations and how it's going to be completely different on both of these. Okay. So one situation is this person just took out a loan a year ago. They bought the house exactly 1 year ago. They had, again, I think I put it as so it's a 4%, and I don't know if you guys can see this, and maybe I can zoom in when needed, but I think you should be able to see these numbers. They had a 4% loan on a 30-year amortization. It was a $100,000 loan. So that first payment, what you will see with amortizations, what's very important about amortization, and by the way, amortized loans, this is how your car loan works, this is how your house loan works. Anything that has an equal amount of payments and your payment is the same from start to finish, that is an amortized loan. Your credit card is a revolving credit loan. It does not amortize, because each month your minimum credit card payment due is going to be different. Your car payment stays the same every month. You have the same amount due from this day to this day. Your house payment, same kind of thing. That is amortization. The way that amortization works is that at the beginning here, when you have a loan of $100,000, you'll see we've got the red line here is interest, the blue line here is principal. So 70% of, in a 4% loan, 70% of your first payment is only affecting interest, and only 30% of your first payment is affecting principal. As time moves on, okay, so this is the percentage of the payment. This is the time moving forward. You can see we're going from 0 payments to 360 payments, which is 30 years. As time moves on in an amortized loan, more and more of the percentage of your payment is going towards principal, and less of the percentage of your payment is going towards interest. This is very significant. What that means is at the beginning of your loan, you may be paying in this case, it's exactly here. 70% of your payment is going towards only interest. So let's look at two different scenarios. One scenario is you get a call from a seller who bought their house exactly 1 year ago. Their balance started at $100,000. It shows $99,855. Frankly, I don't know why my balance at first shows a different number, but we're not talking about that today. Because that's the balance after the first payment. Duh. Okay. So when they made that first payment, it started with $100,000. When they made that first payment of $477, 333 of that went towards interest, 144 of that went towards principal, and then you are left with a $99,855 balance, and so on and so forth. The loan started at $100,000, remember? So if you were to get this lead, and this person comes to you and says, hey, I have this house I bought, I haven't made payments for 1 year, I would like to sell it to you for subject to if you would catch up my back payments. You're going to say, how much are your back payments? And they're going to say $5,251.62 plus whatever escrow was for the time. Okay, so let's ignore that for now. We're just, let's whatever. Is that okay? That's not confusing to just ignore escrow for the moment, is it? Or should I add escrow in, Daniel? Okay, so they're going to say their PI, their back payments, are $5,200. So you're going to say, okay, can you please send me a picture of your mortgage statement? And they're going to send it to you, and it's going to show that they owe $100,000, because they do. They never made a payment. They have not knocked down principal on all of this. They owe a principal balance of $100,000, and they also owe $5,200 worth of payments. When you make that $5,200 worth of back payments plus escrow, whatever it shows on the mortgage statement, then they will owe $98,368. Because in that first year, only $1,600 worth of their back payments actually affected the principal. The rest of their back payments on that mortgage statement came from interest and taxes and insurance and fees and blah, 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 but only this column of payments is actually going to affect their situation. So in this case, you'd be looking at a deal where you've got $5,200 worth of principal and interest payments that are due because it's 1 year. Plus, let's say on escrow, let's say that it's $500 of escrow a month. Okay, so it'd be $500 times the 12 months. Well, that's 6,000 months. Okay, so the mortgage statement is going to say, hey guys, you have a back payment of $6,000 in escrow plus $5,250 in principal and interest. So your back payments are $11,250. Those are your back payments. If we look at are we clear there? Daniel, have I gone off course? Are we clear on what we're looking at?
I think we're getting a little deep on it, but let's finish out the thought process on it.
Yeah, this is where I'm finally going to tell you what the 15% is, right? So I just want to make sure that we're following to this point. Is we've got 12 months of non-payments. In those 12 months, our payment had $500 worth of escrow, and what was it here? $477 worth of principal and interest. So their payment was like $977 a month. We good? We follow?
Yes, sir.
So the mortgage that you're going to look at, their total PITI was like $977. Of that, escrow we're saying is $500. And PI is $477. So total, you owe $11,000 in back payments. That's what the mortgage statement says. It was 11,000 something. But let's look back here at this. $1,600 of that was the only thing affecting your principal, right? The total back payment is $11,000, but when you pay that, the day after, your loan balance is going to be $98,000. So, what is $1,600 as a percentage of $11,000? Well, 1,600 divided by 11,000. Wow, I did not plan that. Could not have worked out perfectly more. It is. I legitimately did not. I have not run these numbers in example before, but it goes to prove my rule of thumb that typically, when you are facing a arrears payment, about 15% of whatever that number is going to be what affects your principal. That's the 15% rule. Now
like
all
that.
of this heady numbers crap that Grant's been going off on for 10 minutes finally starts to make sense. When you are analyzing a deal and somebody says, hey, I would love for you to buy my house. I'm $11,000 behind and my mortgage statement says I owe $100,000. And you're trying to determine, okay, if I put up the $11,000, what's going to be their loan balance tomorrow? And do I have my 2 times cash rule met in that case? Well, heck, I don't know how much of that payment's going to go towards their principal because it's made up of taxes and interest and insurance and fees and blah, 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 blah. A quick and dirty rule of thumb is that you're typically somewhere around 15% of those back payments are going to be what actually affects the principal balance. So if that person came to you and said, I owe $11,000 and I want you to buy my house and I owe $100,000 on the principal balance, you could say, okay, she said she's $11,000 behind. I'm going to do 11,000 times 0.15. So about $1,600 is going to come off of that 100, meaning I'll owe 98,000-ish bucks. Do I meet my 2 times cash rule between 98,000 and the ARV of this property? Daniel, did I lose everybody? Viewers,
I know.
How clear is that?
For me, like, this has been my struggle my whole life through school and everything else. My ADD really starts to struggle whenever people start getting into the deep details. But the deep details is where the money's at, and it's important for people to pay attention to something like this. So if you did get lost, you did get confused, rewind back and watch what's going on. But to recap the simple takeaway from this, and you need to go back and watch it to figure out how he came to this conclusion, so that way you can do it yourself with an absolute certainty, is that the general rule of thumb is if we are looking at a past due payment, the total past due payments, what Grant has found is that on average 15% of your past due payments will be applied to your principal pay down. So if someone's behind $10,000, you're going to expect about 15% of that, also known as $1,500, is going to go towards paying down the principal. So if you have a principal balance of $100,000 and you've got $10,000 in past due payments, when you pay back that $10,000 in past due payments, you can expect about 15% or $1,500 of that $10,000 in past due payments to go towards your $100,000 principal balance, reducing you down to $98,500, which helps you out in your 2 times cash rule. So try to keep that in mind when you're doing this. If that didn't quite make sense when Grant was breaking it all down, because he was getting deep and really explaining it, and I want to make sure that y'all understand and respect the level of education that you're getting here, because there's not many places. In fact, I don't know of a single place you can go and get this type of education online for free. Grant's standing here teaching you on a Wednesday afternoon some really, really sought after information that you're not otherwise going to get. And what he just showed you might seem like, oh man, that's kind of boring or whatever, or maybe you're having problems following along with it because it is getting technical. That is a great thing. If that went over your head, if that confused you, you are in the right spot, because that tells me that you don't know what's going on and you should watch this video again. Go back through, watch what Grant did, because that's exactly how myself, someone that I would consider to be somewhat dense, I struggle with picking up new concepts. But the way I have been able to succeed in this business is I recognize when I'm around somebody that knows far more than I do, and I'll just shut my mouth and I'll listen and I will listen and I will listen and I will listen, because I want to acquire their knowledge. And that doesn't just happen overnight. But since this is a video that you can go home and rewind and watch a second time, it's not entertaining. It's not all the Lambos and stuff like that. But are you really wanting to look at somebody's Lambo, or are you wanting to learn how to get your own Lambo? So with that taken into consideration, you need to figure out the nuts and bolts. And that's exactly what Grant Kemp is doing here for you today. He's doing something that I'm seeing no one else in the industry doing, and he's breaking down solid nuts and bolts for you, so that way when you do get a deal hit hit your plate and you're like, wow, this deal's upside down, you now know, okay, does it meet my 2 times cash rule? Does it meet my 82% all in? Does it meet my minimum cash flow? Does it meet my 18-month repayment standard? Does it meet a 15%, repayment plan that helps me out with my 2 times cash flow? These are all things you're not going to learn somewhere else. So make sure that you are doing Grant a favor. Drop some comments in here. I know that a lot of y'all are taking notes. I know a lot of y'all are studying because a lot of y'all are watching, but we're not getting a whole lot of comments. Help Grant out by throwing these comments in here, because that tells the Facebook algorithms and the YouTube algorithms that y'all are liking this. And I know y'all are liking this because you're sitting there taking notes, and we got a lot of people that are still watching this. Our average playbacks are extremely long, but the reason y'all aren't writing these comments down is because you are taking notes, because you're actually learning. Well, help us out by throwing those comments in there that help us out with the algorithms, so that Grant Kemp can get some love by the social media and help him get his word out there, because he's truly trying to help each and every single one of y'all. Does that make sense?
I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, because again, it is part of the deal. Like, we are taking time. We're closing deals. We've got a lot on our plate, and we're taking time out to make sure that you guys understand what's going on. And I would just really appreciate that, right? Like exactly what Daniel said. If you drop comments, if you share this, if you hit likes on that, Facebook and YouTube like that. That's the only way that Facebook and YouTube know that you like what you're watching, is if you actually tell them somehow and communicate with us. And so, give us some feedback there. Not only does it help us, but it helps us help you, because then we know what your questions are and what's significant to you. And if I know what's significant to you, I can start doing more content to that. So like Sabrina said, great content. Angel says the 10B2 calculator was great, along with the Whetstone, which is a tool I give inside of the Creative Cash Flow Academy to practice with the big game days. Juan, we got some fire emojis. Josie says, nobody ever goes over these numbers. Thank you, Grant. I really appreciate you saying that. Joshua says, huge respect. Angel, amen. Amazing content from amazing people. Thank you. That's so cool. Lakeisha, Robert, Matt, Kip, Deborah, we really appreciate you guys popping this stuff in here. So spread the word. If you're in another forum of people and you're in a Facebook group and people are asking about creative financing, feed them answers. And then also please send them our way, because I love teaching this. I want to get real information out in front of folks on how to do this stuff. Not, hey, if you just do sub2, then you're going to make all this money, because that's not how it is. I want to teach the reality of these things. And sometimes that involves being deep in numbers, because that makes you the person who can take down a deal that somebody else can't. So I think that you summarized it great a minute ago there, Daniel, in saying, look, when you're faced with a back payment, typically about 15% of that back payment is going to be what's affecting your principal of balance. Now, the last thing I want to say on that, which is going to be quick, is that rule of thumb really works on a 30-year loan for like the first 10 years of the loan, 6 to 10 years of the loan. But that's typically where you're going to be getting these leads anyway, meaning that they still owe 24 years on the loan, meaning they still owe 20 years on the loan. It really breaks down about six years in to 8 years in, okay? But it breaks down in a good way. It is actually much, much better for you if somebody calls with the same scenario, and let's use, for example, that they're 20 years in to their loan. Instead of what I said a second ago, the example that we used a minute ago was they are 1 year into their loan. Okay, we took the first year and said that they didn't pay their first year's payments, but now I'm going to go down into what if that same phone call happens, but they didn't pay their 20th year. So what that means is you're going to get the phone call. They're going to say, I haven't paid my loan in a year. And you're going to say, how much does your mortgage statement say that you have in back payments? And they're going to point to their mortgage statement that says that their back payments are, surprise, surprise, $5,700. Wait a minute, hold on. That was the same number. That was the same number that we got before. They were $5,700 behind on the first year's payments. How could that be? Right? If it's a $500 escrow, that means that in both of these scenarios, they're coming to you, they're saying, hey, I owe X amount, and I am behind on payments by 1 year, and my 1 year's worth of payments add up to $11,000 that you're going to have to catch it up. But if they're 20 years in to these payments, remember how earlier we were talking about that the first payment, only $100 of that went towards principal and the rest went towards interest. And here's where I want to prove, or here's something what I wanted to show you is this time you're catching up $11,000, but in your principal bucket, it actually comes out to be, and I don't know why this is giving me a little bit of a weird feedback here. Your principal bucket, this time out of the $5,700 that you're catching up, $3,700 of that is affecting your principal, right? A significantly larger amount of that back payment is going to affect your principal because remember how amortization graphs work. Over time, each payment has a larger percentage of that payment being applied to the principal. So if you get a lead over here, when you catch those loan payments up, it's not going to be 15%. It's going to be significantly more, and so much more that, look, now you're at the stage where you're just hammering away at principal. This is a super desirable deal. If you get a deal where they owe for 20 years or less, that, my friends, is a compensating factor for why you might do a deal that doesn't hit some of these other rules we've talked about. Because you're in this stage where, at this point in time, you are just hammering principal. So each one of the payments that you're making is helping you. Think about it in this way. When you make the back payments for somebody in year one, and you put up 11,000 bucks, well, everything but $1,500 of that was kind of just a fee to do the deal. You're not getting any benefit from that. You're paying into taxes and insurance that should have been paid. You're paying into interest, which is the bank's profit. You get no benefit from that. That's kind of a fee for doing the deal. That $1,500 principal, though, you are transitioning from cash in your bank account to net worth, right? So we're cool with that because you're affecting the principal, so now you've got a larger net worth. So you're just transitioning from cash to net worth for 1,500 bucks. If they're 20 years in, you put in 11,000 bucks. Now the other stuff is all fees, but you're transitioning $3,700 from cash to net worth. And the payments that you make moving forward are all going to make your net worth larger and larger and larger and larger at a significantly faster rate. So keep that into account when you're looking at these deals, that if they've paid on the loan for a really long time, that is super desirable and should be a factor that you are considering whenever you're analyzing these deals.
Let me recap that and throw out a question on a scenario for you real quick, and then I think we should land the plane. So when we're analyzing the deal, something that we should be taking into consideration is how far into that loan are they? You know, if they're only 3 or 4 years into that loan, you know, a lot of the rules that you've discussed really apply. But let's take into consideration a scenario where someone's got a 30-year loan and they've been making payments on it for 20 years and they've only got 10 years left on that loan. Well, from what I've gathered from listening to you is that almost every payment that's going to be made on that house is going to have a very large chunk of it going to paying down the principal. So with there only being 10 years left on this loan and a very large majority of every payment being made going to paying down the principal, I need to think of it like this. Every payment that is made towards that loan is a payment made towards my net worth. Let's say every loan payment is $1,000 and $800 of that every single month goes towards paying down the principal. That means that my net worth grows by $800 every single month because the debt's being paid down, and that creates equity in the property that I otherwise would not have. So one way that you would consider analyzing this deal, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, is they've only got 10 years. Right. They've only got 10 years left on this loan, and let's just say that I plan on buying this property and I want to resell it as a wrap to someone else. If you don't understand what that is, go out there and check out Grant's course on creativecashflow.com, Propelio Academy. Go out there and check these things out. But I'm going to purchase it as a subject to deal. They've only got 10 years left on the loan. And let's just say their principal balance left on this loan is $50,000. I'm just throwing some numbers out there. I can take this deal and turn around and resell it as is for $120,000. So I've already created $70,000 in equity on a note. And I want to make sure everybody understood that. They owe $50,000 on their loan. I've taken that over subject to. They've only got 10 years left on this loan. I'm turning around and immediately reselling it to someone else for $120,000 on a new note. Well, the difference between the note that I just created And the note that I took over is $70,000. That $70,000 immediately gets tacked onto my net worth. Now, every single month when a loan payment is made, $800 of that loan payment goes immediately to paying down the principal value on that $50,000 note. So $800 goes to my net worth every month. Now, there's a new loan that I've just created. That new loan, let's say the payment on that one is also $1,000. Let's just say it's $1,000. Well, only $160 of that goes towards principal pay down, and all the rest of that goes to interest. So I am making a really big payday between the spread of the loan that I just took over and the new loan that I just created. That's called arbitrage. With that taken into consideration, let's say that the cash flow on that deal is almost net zero. The payment that I've got coming into me is $1,000. The payment that's going out is $1,000. I didn't really make any money on that, but I did get a down payment. And let's say that down payment was $12,000. And let's say I only had to come out of pocket $5,000 to get this deal done. Well, if I came out of pocket $5,000 to get this deal done and I got a $12,000 down payment, I immediately got all $5,000 back. I got an additional $7,000 to put into my back pocket. And while I'm not necessarily making any cash flow off of this deal, my net worth is going up by almost $800 a month. And in 10 years, now some of y'all might think 10 years, man, that's forever. Well, imagine if you started doing this 10 years ago. Where would you be sitting at right now? Well, in 10 years, that underlying loan is completely paid off, which means you now have 20 years left of $1,000 a month in cash flow. That kind of deal is something that I would personally be interested in. There's no cash flow on it. But at the end of the day, whenever I close on the deal, I have no money in the deal. It took me $5,000 to close the loan, but whenever I turned around and sold it on a wrap buyer, they brought 12 to the table. So I ended up grossing $7,000 on the front side. I made no cash flow on it. I'm going to have to service it for the next 10 years, but my net worth is growing by the day I close on it, $70,000 on the note spread, and an additional $800 in principal paydown essentially every single month for the next 10 years, and then I jump up to $1,000 a month in cash flow. I would do that deal all day long. Grant, is that something that makes sense, or did I get that wrong?
Yeah, absolutely, because what that means, if you got 20 years left of $1,000 payments that are all yours, you're making $240,000 on a house that, like, you didn't, of net profit, almost $250, you count the net from the down payment, on a house that may not have had a ton of equity to begin with. In that case, it did have a little bit. Let me put another bug in your ear to back up the point that he's saying, and then we'll piece out. And then I want to answer. Matt said something about considering the fees in the analysis. We'll put it this way: if you have a loan that has 30 years left on it, okay, that loan that we just ran a second ago at a 4% interest rate, which is super low, over the life of that loan, you know, you're making payments that $477 or that $977 whatever, but of the P&I, that $477 a month, for the rest of the time you're doing it, only 57% of your payment is actually affecting your net worth. Again, that payment that you're making, you're transitioning from cash to net worth, right? It's cash, I'm making a payment, which means I owe less on this loan by the principal amount, and that much that I owe less is now a plus to my net worth, right? So 50%, 57% of the payments that you would make would actually be transitioning from cash to net worth. If you take that situation of somebody calls you, they're 20 years into their loan, right? So you're gonna take over sub2, the same payment, $477. You're paying it for 10 more years. But remember how the amortization schedule works is like now a larger chunk is going towards principal. Now 82% of the payments that you're making are going from cash to net worth, right? So because of that advancement in time, every payment is not an expense, it's just portions of it are an expense and portions of it are transitioning cash to net worth. Later down in the amortization schedule, that's a significant difference. 82% of your payments are transitioning straight back into yourself. Whereas earlier on, 57% of your payments are transitioning back into yourself. So that's why it's so much more enticing to get to sub2 a deal that's already been having payments made on it for a long time, because now, okay, yeah, I gotta make payments, but it's kind of like if you've ever borrowed money from your 401k or borrowed money from your IRA and you're paying it back at interest. It's like, oh, yeah, I gotta pay it back, but it's mine, right? Yeah, I gotta make a payment, but 80-something% of these payments are my net worth, so sweet. So I hope that together, I hope clears things up. And real quickly, the question that came in from Matt was, why are you not using the late fees and stuff like that. Daniel answered it as well, but the only reason I'm not using it was for simplicity's sake, okay? We could go into that, but the only reason I didn't put late fees and attorney's fees and all that kind of stuff is because it's it was already involved enough. And I just wanted to keep things as simple as possible so that we're talking about principles, but the principle remains. If you're in that first 6-ish years, typically somewhere about 15% of the back payment that is due is gonna affect your principal, okay? So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'll talk to Santiago. Santiago, if you wanna let John know if you're cool with us using your deal as an example, I think that'd be good. Maybe next week, maybe we can do a real life example of, how do these rules of thumb come into play with real deals? And I can maybe show you one that does work, like the one we closed on this week, and one that doesn't work, right? Maybe that would be a good topic for next week that we can do. So we'll look into doing that. Guys, again, I just really appreciate you guys being here. It's really flattering to us that you take time out of your day to watch this stuff. We want to make sure that you're getting everything that you need from this. So as you are watching these videos, if you're going to be somebody who comes back and watches more Grant Teach Me Something, please get in the habit of letting me know when you've had a light bulb moment. If at the very least you just put a timestamp that's like, dude, this is killer information right here. That lets me know what you guys need to know so I can keep feeding that center to help you guys grow, because our job as educators is to remove every obstacle that we possibly can between you and success. And I'm able to do that more and more as we get into a closer and closer relationship. And the way to get into those closer relationships is by seeking me out through Creative Cashflow. If you like how I teach, go to creativecashflow.com, check out the levels there. It's got everything from online education, where I do a Monday night Q&A live for you guys, and I answer every question that comes through until we're done answering. The only thing I don't do on Monday nights is a full-blown deal analysis, but that is something that I do for my creative executives and accelerators group, right? Which is kind of the next levels up to get into our mastermind, which is a phenomenal mastermind. So we've got something for everybody, every budget, hey, I already have a multi-million-dollar business and now I want to do better in real estate, to, hey, I'm thinking about doing real estate. I just want to watch some videos and get some questions answered. I got you taken care of on creativecashflow.com. So check that out. If you do it, run into deals, you're doing deals and you want to get a deal closed, I buy nationwide. Check us out at creativecashflow.com/JV with me, and we can take deals down with you just like we have with Santiago. And make sure that this deal turns into money for you. It's not any kind of long-term agreement. We'll do it deal by deal, and you get cuts out of everything that gets brought in. And then whenever you're comfortable doing it on your own, do it on your own. You don't need me, right? So it's just a tool to help you convert those deals and those leads if you want to go down that road. And like always, if you have not checked out Propelio already, it is a tool that you need to get to that next level, no matter what level you're in. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about Propelio. They got driving for dollars. They got websites taken care of. They got your domain name, so you're not so-and-so at yahoo.com, at gmail.com. That doesn't look good. But Propelio will help you out with that. As part of the deal, you get tons and tons of new leads for cash buyers, for lenders, for motivated sellers. I mean, you're able to download these incredible leads lists. You've got some CRM functionality, and one of the most important pieces, in my opinion, which is being able to run comps nationwide with real actual comps from the MLS, which is very difficult to get on there. Did I miss anything on that, Daniel? If I'll pass it over to you, that'll be my piece. I'll say bye now, landing the plane from me, and then I'll pass to Daniel to say anything that you might want to say, and then we'll just push on and see you guys next week.
Man, I'm good, but I do have a couple questions that came in from the crowd, and if I can get your 45-second answer on this, I'd truly appreciate it. So we had a question come in from Axel Rose, and another one come in from Lorraine Fleming. Both of these similar questions, and I want the quickest answer I can get from this. So one of them is stating, hey, I'm in Ontario, and in Ontario, our average house price is around $1 million. Does subject to work in a market like this where our average home prices are extremely, extremely high?
Yeah, so, and then I see Lorraine came in with the same thing on California. And I actually have 2 executive students out of LA, and I've got several online students out of California. So here's the thing, sub2 is an acquisition model. You can disposition in any way you want after that, okay? So sub2 will always work as long as you are able to dispo in such a way that makes money. I think that a mistake that people make is they start looking at things in too much of a heady way. When it's very simple, does the deal make you money? Then it's a doable deal, right? So only look at deals as what goes into your bank account and what leaves your bank account. I personally do not like investing in markets where the median is over $250,000. I think that if you are in Ontario or if you are in California, that you should be looking to invest in other parts of the country as we are. I don't invest in California, but California is great for wholesaling. Ontario might be great for wholesaling. High dollar amount areas are great wholesale in and outs because your smaller percentages can mean larger dollar amounts. But when you're buying with sub2, you are taking on an obligation to make that payment. And if there is not an obvious path to that leading to you making money, either by, hey, I buy sub2 and I'm going to sell with a wrap and make a bunch of cash flow, or I'm going to rent and make a bunch of cash flow, or I'm going to put it on the market and, sell it retail and make a bunch of money. Like, those are all valid reasons. I just have a hard cap personally in our operations. We do not buy houses I don't like buying over $200,000 ARV. I've got a hard cap at 250. You better have a good reason why I'm doing a deal if it's between 200 and 250. And if that's not your MSA, invest in a market where it is. It's 2020. We have phenomenal technologies that allow us to do that, like Propelio.
Awesome. I appreciate you answering that. And one more, and I'm going to get a 20-second answer out of this because I had a lot of people ask questions and I want to make sure they got what they wanted. Another person has asked this, and they say, whenever I transfer properties in my area, whether it be Florida or Ontario, that they have to pay a transfer tax. In Ontario, it's a 3% transfer tax. In Florida, it's a 0.7 or a 7% transfer tax. I don't remember which one that was. How do you play into that on your analysis?
Mm-hmm. So remember, my analysis is done by, I've very carefully have worded it to all of the cash that leaves your bank account to buy this house counts for cash up front, okay? Now, I personally kind of break my rule by, I usually don't put closing costs in there. But if you've got a significant closing cost that applies, then yeah, man, that's part of the deal. Whatever cash you have to bring out of a bank account and put into this investment for the day of acquisition, including rehab, even though you're not yet to have spent that, but I want you to include that number. Any cash that leaves a bank account to make this deal work is cash you need to protect. That's the whole point, is we don't want to lose money. So cash out is cash out. I don't care where it goes, count it. Or if you don't want to use it, like I don't use closing costs typically, then have a business reason as to why you don't, and I'm okay with that, right? These are rules of thumb. So yeah, I would say count it. But if you don't want to count it, that's because you want to be a little bit more aggressive in that way, and that's okay. That's your call. You're a business owner. Is that solid enough of an answer for you, Daniel?
Yes, sir. I do appreciate it. I absolutely appreciate it. So thank you very much, Mr. Grant Kemp. I do believe that we're going to land the plane on this. For all of y'all out there, make sure you show Grant Kemp some love. Go check out his website, creativecashflow.com. For all of y'all that do not know what a Propelio is a website that offers real estate investor tools for real estate investors. If you need lead lists, if you need websites for your company, you need professional emails, if you need Driving for Dollars app that records your drives, that shows skip tracing and direct mail opportunities. If you need MLS comps, Propelio.com is the website you need to check out. 14-day free trial. Absolutely no credit card required to check it out. So go out there, try out Propelio.com, see what you think about it. Whether you're a brand new investor, seasoned investor, your risk in this deal is zero. No credit card required. You can see what the type of deals are that we got over there and available to you at Propelio.com. Check out Propelio.com. Check out CreativeCashFlow.com. And for all of y'all out there that have been watching this, and there are a lot of y'all over there on YouTube that have just been eating this up. YouTube guys, y'all are doing great here lately. Much love to all of y'all. If you're over there on Facebook and you want to be notified every time we go live, make sure you go to YouTube, search for Propelio, subscribe to us on YouTube, hit that bell icon so that way you are made aware when this goes down, because there is no one else in the industry that I have seen that lays out this level of information on a regular basis and has a true desire to get you to the next level like Grant Kemp does. Thank you all so much. Much love to all of y'all that have stayed tuned in, and I'll see y'all next week at the exact same time with Grant Kemp, 11 a.m. Wednesday Central Standard Time. Thank you for joining in, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Boop, 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 boop. And